Recording started, Mike, for this before I start calling the meeting.
Yes, the recording is going.
Okay, great. So at 7:01, I'll call the Town Council February 9th meeting into session, and we'll go forward with a Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone keeps these rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Proclamations and presentations, there are none listed on our agenda, which point we'll go to item 5, public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town with a 2-minute limit. Again, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand, clicking either reactions or I believe participants, and click raise your hand. And if you are on a mobile device or a phone calling in, you hit *9. So we'll leave it at that if anyone would like to speak. Going once, going twice. All right. Moving on to public hearing items, there are none. So moving to 7.A, reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. Don't believe Katie is on. Brenda, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, this is Brenda Felucci. Connecticut Central Region Tourism District met yesterday. We discussed the upcoming year, mostly about brochures and how to get the information out to help support our community businesses, our small businesses. They have some great performing brochures. None of them right now are something that Tolland is listed in because we just don't have the types of businesses, but I'm sure in the future we might have one. Like the #1 brochure is breweries and microbreweries. So maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to have a listing in there. The second one listed is tacos, and there's a couple taco places, close to Tolland that were listed in there. Then we have diners and family fun, and those were the top 3 anyway. And barbecue. Again, not something in Tolland, but something in our area that we support. We're waiting on the budget, which I believe the budget presentation is being given by the governor tomorrow, where we'll find out what our budget is and if we can go forward with some of the items we have listed. I am working with a new owner of a business that is in Tolland. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to make an announcement on what that business is and how they're looking to add some tourism value to the town. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be pretty exciting. So get back to me in April, and hopefully I'll have a really good report. And that's it for that.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I just want to make a quick point of note that I am running the meeting tonight due to Chairman Nuccio being unable to attend. And that is why you may be seeing a different face running the meeting. So with that being said, we will move on to item 7B, report of town council liaisons. And Brenda, if you're ready, I know there was a pretty big meeting last night. If you'd like to go first.
Yes, we had a planning and zoning last night, and they had a number of things we discussed. First, they had the quarry come in to talk about their map. They had a gas station that is looking to get a zoning change for, it's the corner of Merrill Road and Goose Lane. Right now there's a gas station there that is empty. What's really exciting about this gas station, it's going to have a QSR, which is a quick serve restaurant, or what they call fast food. I'm sure everybody has seen those gas stations that have the drive-through for something like Dunkin' Donuts. What else are some of the other ones?
And the Subway or kind of sandwich shop.
Well, I don't know if they've had the drive-through for the Subway. They don't have a QSR lined up yet, but they're looking to make sure that they would be able to have the permit to have that drive-through. You would not be able to access this QSR from going into the convenience store, like you can in some locations that we're all familiar with. The only way to access them would be to go through the drive-through itself. So I was pretty excited to see, new business on an empty corner. We'll see how that goes. And then we had Santini come in. Santini is a developer that does apartment complexes, and they're looking at right behind Big Y, 240 units. It is going to be, apartments. It was just a quick overview of what they had. So it was really nice to be able to sit down and have a very casual conversation about what their vision is, and allow the inland wetlands and the planning and zoning to ask some questions. Really excited to see this build out there. It's something that could help support the businesses that are in the Big Y Plaza and the Fieldstone Commons Plaza. What's great for the residents is they have everything from health, doctor's offices there, to the grocery store, to a restaurant, even a, veterinarian, and I hope they don't need it, but physical fitness or physical therapy. So, everything right there is within walking distance. So I think it's a very good, it's very exciting, I think. Plus they're going to have a pool house for residents. So, and it was great to see that they're very cognizant of how diverse the land is in the area, that they have wetlands there, that they have different kinds of swamps in the area, and they're working very hard to ensure that will get preserved. We didn't go in any detail because, again, it was a very high level discussion. If you look at planning and zoning's packet, you'll be able to see the plans that they're showing for right now. If anybody had any quick questions that you think I might be able to answer, I'm open to them. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do this one more thing. 50% of those are going to be 1-bedroom apartments. The other 50% is going to be 2-bedroom. 10% of those are going to be accessible units, for ADA accessibility. And I don't know, any questions? No, I was really excited to see it. So that was planning and zoning. Blight did not meet, land acquisition did not meet. Sustainable CT, I'm going through the equity toolkit, and I'm going to probably reach out to Bev Bellady and have her take a look. We need to make an equity statement before we are allowed to get certified at the bronze certification level. That's something that's very easy to do. There's a number of other communities that have already created equity statements. So I'm sharing those with her, and we'll talk to the entire Sustainable CT team about that when the time comes. And I think that's all of my reports. Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'll try and move around my screen a little bit. Councilor Luba, do you have anything to report on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. First off, can you hear me? It's a new microphone and everything. I want to make sure that it's all good.
Hear you loud and clear.
All right. Thank you. Yes. First, with regard to Birch Grove Building Committee that we did meet, that we had a meeting on, again, the status of the construction, that things are moving along very well. I think better than I think anyone has thought. We've been fortunate to have minimal COVID impact, that we are actually scheduled to start having town council members as well as other building committee members go through and tour the facilities again, take a look at how things are progressing. We did cover some of the issues where we're going from some of the items that we put off for a period of time to see where things would pan out with regard to the unsuitable soils and the funding that the construction company's contingency fund is still in good shape, as well as the town's owners contingency fund. So that's giving us a little bit more flexibility to consider reasonable requests from the school, as well as from the construction company, things that they see that would add value back into the construction for minimal impact. So we did approve a few of the orders that were put in, the change orders that were put in, and then we also approved a list of other items that are going to be submitted to the state to see if they, again, if it would be eligible for reimbursement through the state, or at least partial offset through the state. And then once we get that information back, we'll go through and determine which ones we want to cover from there. Ms. Rosen, anything that I missed on that? I mean, I know that you were there. Anything? I think that pretty much covers it.
No, you very, very well said. You know, in terms of owner's contingency and things like that, we're waiting for the unsuitable soil mechanics of that to sort out before we can replenish and replace, you know, bring all the things that were deferred back into the project. So I know we're waiting on the D'Amato firm to go through Bev was working with me on this earlier today. I know Katie's involved too. So once that settles, then we can go through the process to replenish those items back on, including the other portion of owner's contingency that we've deferred. We can get it back on our side so that, you know, in case anything else goes wrong, we'll have that money there.
Right. And then thank you. And then the other aspect is for this month is for the Board of Education. I'm covering, and that again, it's budget. That was discussed pretty significantly. That the superintendent presented his requests and recommendations. There was significant discussion on a lot of different issues by the board. They did have a special session as well to go into further discussions, and actually had a budget workshop where they went through and presented the superintendent's budget as well, and answered questions on that. So they are getting close to presenting their budget request to the town council so that we could have our joint meeting later on this month, and then be able to go forward with our budget request. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And to clarify, did you state that they're a month ahead of schedule for completion, or are they still on track just for the August 2021?
That well, that they're ahead of schedule as far as how far, you know, I don't want to, you know, I'm knocking on wood on that, because as soon as I say we're a month ahead, then all of a sudden something will happen and we'll be 2 months behind. So that we are all very cautiously optimistic that we will remain on track, well, ahead of schedule, so that we can have the school fully set well before the scheduled opening date. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. All right, Councilor Regan. Oh, you're still muted.
You would think after nearly a year of doing this that I'd remember to unmute myself. I did not attend any meetings, so nothing to report from me.
Honestly, I'll say no worries. I took a moment today to listen in onto some legislative public hearings, and there are people up there that could take a cue from us in terms of how they utilize technology, but I know that's neither here nor there. Councilor Schenner?
Thank you. So the Ag Commission scheduled for February 1st was canceled due to snow. And then we were supposed to have a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting last night, but that was canceled due to quorum issues. I was fortunately able to attend the EDC meeting last Wednesday. Mike was there too. So if I forget anything. And they did discuss our the topic of advanced CT, which we at our previous meeting decided to kind of send over to them for their thoughts. And as Mike has mentioned in the meeting, our previous town council meeting, that the advanced CT offers a free goal planning service to economic development commissions. And I think everyone on the board there was in agreement that that was probably the best way to go versus spending any money on other services like the site finder and stuff like that. So as far as I know, they're having an informational meeting next month. Is that correct, Mike? Is that what I?
That's correct. In March, Courtney is going to come to EDC and talk about the services Advanced CT can help EDC with. That's correct.
Yep. So that discussed some ongoing businesses, and like Brenda said, just including the new gas station, possibly. And we not too much more on the community currency, but that's still an idea that's floating around, probably picked up more in the spring. So that's all I have to report today.
All right, thank you, Councilor Shenner. And Councilor York, if you're available, do you have any meetings? That you
Yeah, I am. I'm having bad internet, so I have to keep my video off. Otherwise, everything is off. So apologize. I didn't have PCC and any other meetings, so I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. And then for me, I did attend on the 28th was the Conservation Commission meeting. They presented their Conservation Corps projects for the year. They spoke on a pilot program to place dog waste bags at one of the sites for 6 months to see how that works out. That was noted as one of the biggest issues outside of trespassing and illegal usage of the properties is loose and dogs not being picked up after in terms of impacts on the environment. In addition, they are going to explore looking into a state forester to examine multiple trails and conservation areas for ash trees due to the emerald ash borers decimating a lot of that population and impacting both the sustainability as well as safety of the trails. So other than that, there was nothing major to report on. So going forward, we can move on to new business. Item 8.1, consideration and approval of a lease renewal for 52 Tolland Green, also known as the Jail Museum, between the Town of Tolland and the Tolland Historical Society for a period of April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2031, and the setting of a public hearing thereon for February 23rd, 2021. So Mike, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Good evening, councilors. Mike Rosen, town manager. So on your agenda tonight, there are 3 lease renewals for 3 different of our historic buildings in town. And they're on the agenda tonight for consideration to set a public hearing at our next meeting. Because due to our charter, any lease or real property decisions need to be done by public hearing. So even though it's a lease and not a sale or a purchase, it still gets done in the same way that an ordinance gets done, which is by public hearing. So as it happens, all 3 of these buildings, and we'll do one at a time, but to start 52 Tolland Green, the Jail Museum, their lease, their current lease, which was a 10-year span lease from April of 2021, of 11 to March. I'm all mixed up here, but basically it went from 2011 to 2021, and it's now come due to be renewed. So the Jail Museum, the Historical Society, actually reached out to us through Kathy Bach, their president, and they asked for an extension of another 10 years for that property. Nothing else has changed within the agreement, so it's still the same $1 a year amount that we charge them to rent out the space. And this was reviewed by our town attorney. Actually, all 3, I'll just say it now, all 3 of these were reviewed by our town attorney to make sure that nothing else has changed or got written in that wasn't part of the existing lease agreement. So quite simply, all 3 of these are just extensions of the current agreement for another 10 years. And 10 years seems to be the standard agreement length for something like this. So that, we're just continuing what we've done in the past for that. So we can go through each of these individually if you'd like. But what I'm asking tonight is that council set the public hearing for each of these 3 items for the next meeting. And then if you desire, I can ask the proprietors to come to that meeting if they have any specific questions, as to their business or, to anything else specific to their property, because they're not here tonight. So that's all I have. If you want, we can do a one at a time, or, however you feel comfortable. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. And I just had actually one question. I don't know, it's well before your time, Mike, so I don't know if Lisa is available or would be able to answer. Is this something that we've done in perpetuity in terms of the 10-year lease, or was this the one from 2011 to 2021 the first time we did a 10-year, or has it been done multiple decades?
Want me to answer?
If you happen to know, I think I have an idea, but if you know better, go ahead.
No, go ahead if you have it, and I can always add in if anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know I have to find which one it is. So one of these, I believe, is on their second extension. This would be this is the third that we'd be going for. I think one or two of them this is their first extension, but they're all this 10-year time frame. The military museum, this is their third extension now, because there was an amended lease in there from 2018. So I don't know, Lisa. I think 10 years is the standard for this.
Normally, it is. There's some, different units. Sometimes there's a 99-year lease, but for this one, 10 years, I think is standard.
Okay.
The military museum, I know that's fairly new. So I don't know if we did 10 years with them or not. I think we only did a couple of years to start.
Well, that's right, because the military museum took over for where the dispatch set, right? The police were over there. So that's a newer one. So I'm assuming then that it's the Arts Center that's on another iteration of their 10-year lease. I know Mike Wyman was the one who reached out regarding the extension, and I'm sure we could look into it between now and the public hearing. I can get you the answer about how many renewals we've had for each of these. I know I had Lynn in my office look into it, and she was able to pull the most recent iteration of all three of these, those are what are in your packet tonight. But I don't believe she had the iteration prior to that, because that would have been 90s to the 2000s, and I'm not sure if we have that in the office. It might be in archives.
Okay, no, that's fair. So I will leave it open to if any counselors want to raise their hand if they have any questions. Give it a moment. If not, otherwise, I would entertain a motion to set the public hearing. If anyone is willing to take the role I normally have to read out the resolution, you can find that resolution on page 13 of 62 in the meeting packet. I'll give it a moment for anyone that's willing to scroll up and find that.
I found it, if you'd like me to do it.
Yeah.
Sure. So I read from where it says be it resolved, right?
Yes, correct.
Well, I think actually the motion is that the following resolution be
Right,
introduced.
right.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This is Brenda Flusy. To make a motion that the following resolution be introduced and set down for a public hearing on February 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. remotely via video conference. The draft resolution states, be it resolved by the town council that it hereby approves a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the lease renewal of 52 Tolland Green between the town of Tolland and the Tolland Historical Society for April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2031.
All right, is there a second?
There's Lulu, but I'll second it.
All right, great. All those in favor, I'll go down the line for a roll call vote. Councillor Falusi?
Aye.
Councillor Luba?
Aye.
Councillor Regan?
Aye.
Councillor York?
Aye.
Councillor Schenner?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. Moving on to item 8.2. Mike, if you want to give a quick high-level summary, you kind of just already all together, but it's just
Sure.
Nate.
This is so now we're talking about the Military Museum, 749 Tolland Stage Road. This item runs simultaneously, concurrently with the other two. So this was originally done in April of 11, going through March of 2021. So we're on the cusp of that right now. And per the agreement we have with them, they needed to notify us, I think it was 60 days ahead of time, that they were interested in renewing. So they've honored that. And this is the same. This is with the Historical Society again, a nonprofit in town. And I believe the rent is the same. I think it's $1. I could double check that, but I'm trying to find, oh yeah, $1 a year. So it's $1 a year lease that we have with them. But just due to the timing on this, and it's the same thing, we need to have a public hearing on it so that the public can weigh in whether or not that we should extend real property. So that's why this is on the agenda, and it'll be very similar for the next one as well.
Yeah. All right. So if there are no questions, I'll just give it a moment. I don't think I see any. If anyone would like to, I would entertain a motion that the motion listed on page 21 of 62 be read into the record.
Okay, I'm on that page. This is Brenda Flusig. I'd like to make a motion that the following resolution be introduced and set down for a public hearing on February 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. remotely via video conference. The draft resolution states, be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby approves a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the lease renewal for 749 Tolland Stage Road between the town of Tolland and the Tolland Historical Society for April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2023.
Okay, and is there a second?
This is Kirchner. I'll second that.
All right, great. So all those in favor by roll call vote, Councilor Palusi?
Aye.
Councilor Luba?
Aye.
Councilor Regan?
Aye.
Councilor York?
Aye.
Councilor Schenner?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. And we'll move on to item 8.3. Consideration and approval of a lease renewal for 22 Tolland Green, also known as the Arts of Tolland building between the town of Tolland and the Arts of Tolland, Inc. And Mike, if you want to, I know you kind of
Yeah.
said it's all the same thing, but if you want to just do a quick
yeah.
summary.
Happy to. So the Arts Center, or the Arts of Tolland building, which is right across the street from Town Hall, we leased that out to Arts of Tolland Incorporated. Same idea again. It's $1 a year for a 10-year time span. The nice thing about having to do this 3 times is you keep remembering new things. So what we'll have on our next agenda after the public hearing will actually be an extension document that council will authorize me to sign after the public hearing, assuming we do move forward with the extension. So what I mentioned, that town attorney has looked at the lease agreements, the existing ones. What the council will actually be voting on at the next meeting will be a separate side letter extending it for another 10 years. So just because I forgot to mention that the first 2 times, I'll mention that now. So otherwise, it's the same thing. 10-year agreement that currently expires March 31 of this year, and the extension would be for 10 more years until the year 2031.
Okay, great. There's no other comment or questions from council. I would entertain a motion that the resolution outlined on page 28 be read into the record and set a public hearing for the 23rd.
Okay. This is Brenda Falusi. I'd like to make a motion that the following resolution be introduced and set down for a public hearing on February 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. remotely via video conference. The draft resolution states, be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby approves a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the lease renewal for 22 Tolland Green between the town of Tolland and the Arts of Tolland, Inc. for April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2031.
All right, and is there a second?
I'll second that, John Regan.
Okay, great. And we'll do a roll call vote again. Councilor Palusi?
Aye.
Councilor Luba?
Aye.
Councilor Regan?
Aye.
Councilor York?
Aye.
And I don't know if Councilor Schenner lost his connection or not. I don't think I see him in the Zoom call
Yeah,
anymore.
he's just said that he's been having issues with his connection, so I don't know if he's on right now.
So if you'd like, we can, the motion still has, it's a 5-0 at the moment. I can note, oh, I think he's coming back in. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm not sure if this is him. It just says iPhone. Kurt, is that you on the iPhone?
Let's see.
Oh,
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yep, that's me. My computer gave me a problem, so I'm trying to restart.
Okay, we're in the middle of the motion to approve that lease. Are you in favor of it?
I am, yes.
Okay, 6-0. Okay, I'll change your name to Kurt.
All right, and I was also an aye. Sorry, I didn't say that quite yet, but yeah, so that is unanimous. So we will move forward with that public hearing for all 3 items, which brings us to item 8.4, discussion and consideration of a statement against racism by the Tolland Town Council.
Can I make a motion to move agenda item 9.1 ahead of this item so that in case somebody who's helping us with the 9.1 needs to get off, let's be cognizant of our employee or, our staff's time.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. If there's any question or discussion from other counselors, if anyone would like to second that motion.
This is Lulu, I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, Counselor Falusi,
Aye.
Counselor Luba,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
I,
Counselor York,
Aye.
and Counselor Shenner.
Aye.
And I am an aye, so we will move item number 9.1 ahead of item 8.4. So with that being said, Mike, I know we kind of jumped a little bit for the packet. I want to give a summary of the continued discussion regarding the settlement offer from the Honeywell Corporation.
Okay, very good. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So what we've been doing now, I think this has been on our agenda pretty consistently for almost probably 2 months. So Honeywell and the town are engaged in a contract whereby the Honeywell Corporation does measurement and verifications for the town about energy savings and how, efficiency when it comes to energy. And it's a joint agreement between the Board of Education, the town, and Honeywell. So all three entities. In fact, the Board of Ed has the lion's share of what's supported by the agreement. So what's been going on, I'm trying to quickly think in my head of where it's like a soap opera where it's a saga here, but where we last left off on this was we've had several legal authorities looking at the proposed settlement agreement, which in your packet this evening, we haven't, it has been updated starting on page 37 of 62. This was updated to reflect a couple of things that have changed since the previous iteration, mostly in 2.1, which is the section mutual releases, which has some language regarding guarantees and warranties, which was suggested that get looked at and placed in. There was some back and forth between our town attorney and Honeywell's attorney on wording, and there is based, and also the Board of Ed's attorney was involved as well. So our town attorney spoke with Shipman and Goodwin, the Board of Ed counsel, as well as Lisa checked in with our bond counsel, Mike Botello. So we've had a lot of lawyers looking at this, and the finalized wording is what's in the contract now in 2.1. There was also some other earlier iterations of this, which has been baked in now a few times, but I believe there was a pointing out that any agreement would be subject to FOIA because it's a public settlement, and attorney's fees, I think, were also built into this along the way. So this, like I said, this has been sort of before us for a while now. So I believe what's before you now is the final. We've looked into the guarantee language and the warranties. I know we've had, I'm trying to think of again, what's changed since the last time around. I mean, I know Lisa's gone back and forth with them a few times. I'll just say that I think we're getting very close to the walkaway point for Honeywell from this. So I think we should, if we're going to make a move on this, we probably would want to consider actually acting upon this tonight. And in exchange for the settlement agreement, the town would be receiving the sum of $200,000, which we're proposing in the draft motion tonight that $200,000 be deposited into the utility internal service fund account until such further time when it will be appropriated, most likely for capital projects related to energy savings, as we discussed at a previous meeting. So I think that brings us up to speed on this. The motion tonight, which is in your packet on page 42, in effect authorizes me as the town manager to finalize and negotiate and sign the settlement agreement between the town and the Honeywell Corporation. And like I said, depositing it into the use of funds. So I don't know if Lisa, is there anything I missed on that? I think we covered it, right?
I think you covered pretty much. The attorneys all worked out with the lease, and the lease is fine, and the warranties and all that. So they've been working together between the Board of Ed and the town. So I think we're pretty good with everything. And once we finalize the final information from our attorney, then we'll be able to move forward with it.
Great, thank you.
All right, yeah, I have no questions personally, but I do just want to extend thanks to the town manager's office, Lisa, all the attorneys that have been working very diligently with Honeywell almost begrudgingly at times, but I'm glad that we're kind of reaching a fairly solid consensus that's beneficial for everyone and will ultimately be that settlement and deposit will be utilized for more energy efficiency savings for our community, as well as reducing our reliance on greenhouses and hopefully move forward with a very cleaner environment for our community. And also a shout out to Board of Ed member Shake, who I believe, as Mike outlined, the 2.1 was something that they brought up into question in terms of the warranties. So a little kudos to them as well. If there are any questions from counselors or any additional comments. All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the Tolland Town Council approve the resolution as outlined on page 42.
Okay. This is Brenda Flusay. I make the motion that the Tolland Town Council approve the following resolution. The draft resolution states, be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby approves as follows. Consideration of a resolution authorizing the town manager to negotiate and sign a settlement agreement between the town of Tolland and Honeywell Corporation, and to deposit said settlement into the Utility Internal Service Fund until such further time when it will be appropriated.
And is there a second?
That's Kurt Schneider. I'll second that.
All right, great. So all those in favor by roll call vote, Councillor Flusy.
Aye.
Councillor Luba.
Aye.
Councillor Regan.
Aye.
Councillor York.
Aye.
Councillor Shanner.
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. All right, moving back to new business, item 8.4, which is on page 29 of the agenda. Discussion and consideration of a statement against racism by the Tolland Town Council. I know there's not too much of a summary, Mike, for that, other than
Yeah, I can try to tee it up, but I'm hoping that maybe somebody else will take it over. So just to kind of give a little background, at our last meeting, there were 2 proclamation requests, and one was specific to the town council declaring racism as a public health emergency in a proclamation form. And as you can see, the minutes are in the packet. You can kind of refresh what happened, but both of the proclamations, including the one I just mentioned, were removed from the agenda as, sort of being not the right format to do something of that magnitude. So it was suggested at the last meeting that a better way to do this would be some sort of a statement, perhaps even a joint statement between the council and some of the other elected boards in town. And it's on the agenda tonight. There isn't supporting documentation because there's no draft that I had gotten to share or anything like that, because in this case, where would a draft like that come from? You would need to have some discussion on it at the meeting. So I don't know if people brought drafts. I think maybe Vice Chair Jones, you emailed me about an hour ago, but I'm not sure. At this point, I think this is more a discussion amongst you all, counselors, to talk about what a statement might this look like. And there, I don't know if Vice Chair Jones, if you want me to, you asked to share the screen of the original draft, or as a jumping off point, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, so I would like to be clear, the conversations between myself and Chairman Nuccio's leadership were just individual conversations regarding the potential for a discussion. But I did want to share this as not a motion, but as a stepping off point for there to be a broad, respectful, and cordial conversation between counselors regarding a statement against racism. So I was going to read that for individuals who are not able to read it visually. I was going to speak it out. So if you were able to share your screen with that draft that was discussed between myself and Chairman Nuccio. So it reads, prejudice in all forms is a blight that only serves to harm all of society. As elected representatives of the town of Tolland, we condemn racism, bigotry, and discrimination in any form and look to promote authentic dialogue about race, diversity, and inclusion. As a council, we endeavor not only to continuously evaluate our own policies and practices in order to ensure they live up to these values and standards, but seek to educate all citizens and our municipal employees regarding racism, as well as all forms of prejudice and the negative impacts they have upon our community. It is through open dialogue, humility, and respect that we can learn from each other and from the community where we live and work together to appropriately address these issues facing our town, state, and nation. So with that being said, that was just a discussion between Council Chairwoman Nuccio and myself, but is a stepping off point. And I would encourage, again, respectful, cordial dialogue if there are other councilors that have brought their own statements or have comments on the statement that was provided. Oh, sorry, I just want to say if you could raise your hand, we haven't been using that function just so that everyone gets an opportunity to speak. All right, it looks like I believe Councilor Falusi is first, followed by Councilor Luba, and then Councilor Regan and Schenner.
Yes, thank you. This is Brenda Falusi. When we do statement, I would like to ensure that we include information about systemic, structural, and institutional racism. These forms of racism, while the words are used interchangeably sometimes, or the phrases are used interchangeably, there's a little bit of nuances with each of them. They could be intentional or unintentional. We spoke a lot about at the last meeting about intentional racism and about the, many residents came up that were very brave to share their personal experiences with us, both, during public comment and via email. And I received numerous phone calls and emails to myself personally about instances that people have experienced or witnessed. But I don't think that we've had the opportunity to examine where, mostly for me, where structural racism exists inside Tolland. Things like how it impacts planning and zoning, how it impacts our housing market, how things that we do as a community that we would never think of as having structural racism impacts would be impacting other communities in our state, and how we can be good neighbors and citizens in our town, in our state, in order to address these systemic and structural or institutional types of racism. So I was happy to hear that we were considering talking to some other boards and commissions and including them in on this. And I'd like to also mention that Sustainable CT can have an equity coach come in for free and work with us for up to 4 hours. So that might be something we can reach out to them and have them, facilitate that meeting so that it's somebody who has some expertise on this kind of topic and who is, not member of our community, be able to, walk us through and, facilitate and be referee, so to speak. So those were my first impressions, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Falusi. Councilor Luba, your hand was up and now it's down. I don't know if you.
I'll hold my comments till the end. I'll wait to see if anybody else has any other comments, and then I'll jump.
Okay, that's fair. So Councilor Regan, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that statement had some language in there about open discussion. So from my point of view, I'd like to see some stronger language around having an open dialogue, the ability to have an open dialogue, and maybe some mechanism for that to take place. I don't know what that will look like at this point, but I'm just putting it out there because I think people, after hearing what we heard at the last meeting from some of our residents and then seeing some of the emails that have come in, I think there needs to be some sort of mechanism. And again, I don't know what that will look like, but I'd like to have that be considered and see if we can draft some sort of language around that. And then the other thing is education. So if there is, as Councilwoman Falusi mentioned, if there are experts in the field that we can bring in here, and if it's free, that's even better. But if there are experts we can bring in and we can offer this to the community, I think that would be a great thing. I fully support education and educational opportunities. So those are the two things that I'd like to see if we can draft some language around those. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Regan. Councilor Schenner.
Thank you. So my initial reaction after first seeing this is I like where it's going. I like what I see in this statement. I would like also for the opportunity for this to be shared with our other elected officials. I think that's something, I don't know how we handle it, if they make their own or if they just sign on to our statement, that's to be discussed. And I would like to see if we're going to add any, before we add any language regarding systemic racism, I would like more of a definition. I am personally unclear on what that is, what that entails. I mean, I've heard that, we were told last meeting that putting out our garbage is systemically racist. So I need a little more clarification on what that is before I could support putting that in a statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Schenner. Councillor York.
Thank you, Chairperson Jones. Sorry again about not having my camera on. I have good internet and I just don't want to be able to be unheard. So hopefully I'm clear. I agree with Councillor Reagan that we definitely need education. And I'd like to know, what are we focusing on more? So if we're declaring a public health crisis for Tolland, are we going to discuss just Tolland, or are we discussing racism as a whole? And I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive, but if we're declaring that racism as public health crisis in this town, should we not be hearing more from the town members? So, and if that's the case, how is that facilitated? How is that moderated? And how is it given equal access to everybody in the community? So yes, education is key. We do a lot at my institution where I work at in this topic. I have very wide plethora of different students of all different backgrounds, and it is very much something that we have to live by where I work, but that is in my institution. So if we're making something specific to Tolland, I'd like us to hone in on what we're specific. So if we are saying that racism is a public health crisis in Tolland, we should be having specific topics and talks regarding Tolland and how that is approached. I'm not sure. Again, we just need to find the right moderator, the right facilitator for this, and the right ability to advertise it to the community. I think everyone should be aware of what others are experiencing in terms of racism, in terms of bullying, and that we should work as a community to be more kind and be more helpful and ensure that people are not being excluded because of the color of their skin or their gender or sex or religious affiliation or their political affiliation. All of those things do need to be taken into consideration, that we all need to be inclusive as a town. And again, are we talking about town? Are we talking state? Are we talking country? Are we talking world? And I know, again, they're not mutually exclusive, but we just need to hone in on that a little more.
All right, thank you, Councillor York. Councillor Luba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That I think first off, I want to thank both you as well as Ms. Nuccio for starting out, at least in giving us this format, or at least the beginnings of this statement. I think it encompasses a lot of, it's a great start to begin with. I think that I share the same concerns with as Mr. Shaner about the whole systemic racism and structural racism, the definitions, that there's a lot of nebulous areas about that. But I think that one of the things in addressing the structural racism that we can do is that we can focus on what the town has control over. That, as we've discussed previously when we were discussing, or when people were presenting their issues regarding declaring racism as a public health emergency, and a lot of the emails that we got in support of that there was a lot of things that the town could not control. We can't control healthcare and what happens with healthcare. We can't control transportation. But one thing that we can control is the issue of taxes, which I think is something that would go directly to the issue of structural racism, because that's something where unless we control the taxes within the town, then that's something that will automatically is basically a de facto redlining, because what you're doing now is you're pricing people that may be able to move into town and create a more diverse town, create a younger town, bring more people in by increasing the taxes to the point where these families can't move there. I think that's a significant issue. And that's something that is directly under our own control. And it sort of builds on everything that Ms. Falusi has been saying, where there's opportunities for tourism, there's opportunities for business, there's opportunities. I mean, the great thing with Santini's and all that they have to offer. But if the taxes are too high, then the family can't move here, that the businesses can't move here, that none of these things can happen. And so I think we need to look at that. And that's the one way that we can actually sort of combat something or present something within our control that could combat this structural racism that's been presented. That, you know, we repeatedly hear about the median income of $122,000 as far as the reason why we should be able to raise taxes so that we can pay for these various programs and other things like that. But by doing that, you're pricing yourself out from people, from being affordable for people to move here. So I think that if we want to make, if we're truly going to work behind this and address the issue of structural racism or those issues, is that we need to make the town affordable. And we need to, that one thing that we do have direct control over is the budget. And I think that's the best way that we can handle it. And so I'd like to, you know, have that addressed inside there. We need to look at what we can control: the town code, the budget, and our employment practices. And I think those are the three things that we should be looking at. And I think that this statement completely covers it. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Luba. And yes, I agree that addressing our diversity in housing stock, you know, when we talk about the value of homes and the accessibility and affordability and sort of that redlining policy, what its intents and purposes were, is important to recognize. But I believe, you know, with the Santini proposal, I don't know how affordable that would be, but providing opportunities for advocacy on behalf of the town with the state, perhaps to increase and improve our wastewater systems, our sewer lines. You know, there's a lot of large parcels that are developable for more diverse income and diverse housing options, but unfortunately, the money isn't there to put that proper investment in, other than Merrill Road, where that main water main connection is. So just appreciate those comments. Councillor Flusy for a second round.
Yes, thank you, Brenda Flusy. So systemic racism, which is also called structural racism or institutional racism, are the systems, structures, or institutions that have procedures or processes that disadvantage people of color. Things like you mentioned, redlining. It's a complex interaction of culture, policy, and institutions that holds in place the outcomes we see in our lives. So it's more than taxes. It's in a lot of this can be seen in Tolland as unintentional, things that just happened. For example, Tolland is 95% at the moment single family detached housing, and our lot sizes are at 2 acres. That makes it, that's not affordable housing that would be built on a 2 acre lot. That's not workforce housing that would be built on a 2 acre lot. It's something that happened in such a way that we can't welcome people who need affordable housing or even workforce or workhouse pricing of housing to come in. Lowering taxes is not going to bring us the ability to have people move in with affordable housing. There's a lot more to it than that. So the reason why we have the 2 acre lots is because, as Mr. Jones has mentioned, you know, we don't have services to certain areas of our town. You know, the gas lines or the water and sewer lines, it's wells, and we have to think about the environment. So, you know, it was a series of events that have led us to where we are right now at not having the affordable housing stock that we need. Our POCD recognizes that we don't have enough affordable housing, and it's something that we've already pointed to. So we're already working on addressing the systemic racism in this one area. And if we just take a look, we could find many more areas that are probably coincidental that we would be addressing systemic, structural, or institutional racism without changing our path, but putting the dedication of our workforce and putting the creativity of our people, just deciding that we're going to focus on these items. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do appreciate, you know, it should be noted that while income inequality does cross certain racial and ethnic barriers, that it has been pervasively predominantly people of color that have not had the opportunity for advancement in terms of education, in terms of opportunities for professional careers, as well as job hiring and job advancement that would afford them into communities such as ours. And providing those opportunities and having more inclusive hiring practices, which I believe are part of some of our practices and policies in town, would make our community have more opportunities for diversity. So just want to add that. But Councilor Lube, I see your hand is up for a second time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That I believe that a lot of things, again, that Councilwoman Falusi has brought up, and they're well taken points. But at the same time, those are things that we can't control ourselves. With regard to the gas lines, with regard to other things like that, we cannot control that. We can't force a gas company to run lines out here, that we can't do certain things. We can work with them through the POCD and try and develop certain things so that we can get those, we can attract them to come out here. But that, again, that's something that's outside our control as far as whether or not we can have these other things to assist us in making these lots smaller, to make it so that we can have gas lines and sewer lines and other things instead of having to rely upon on the septic systems and wells. The reason why that we have the septic systems and wells is because, or the reason why we have the 2-acre requirement or that larger requirement is because of the wells and because of the septic systems. And so that's something that really, until it's like putting the cart before the horse. So I agree that we need to work on these things, but we also need to focus on, okay, so let's use the POCD and use what we can to our advantage, or to at least work on developing these, rather than saying that we need to take a look at making the lot smaller, because until we get these until we get these utilities and these other items out here, that's not going to be something that I think is a reality. But so I agree that it's something we need to look at. But again, we need to look at what we can control, because those are things that we cannot control. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Luba. And I would say that I think there's an area where we can possibly advocate with state legislators and with the state government in terms of encouraging potentially gas line extensions or water main extensions. I cannot recall, I wasn't on the council at the time when the Big Y Plaza was built, and other locations like Nearac, if there was state aid. I don't know if that's a question either Lisa or Mike would be able to answer. It's older history, probably early 2000s, in terms of how we were able to get state assistance to help develop parts of our community, but that might be an area where renewed focus with a vision on the POCD, creating more inclusivity and diversity would be beneficial, as well as, potentially encouraging town level investment. Because I know, at least I think for some of the water main hookups and, the tax abatement programs for larger businesses that have moved into Tolland did require the town to take an initial, multi-year tax abatement or a hit and gradually regain some of those revenues at a time when that was profitable and comfortable for businesses that have entered. If there's anyone else that would like to speak, I know we're on our second go around. I believe, Mike, at this point, we're not voting on a statement at this point. We're voting to draft. I don't know if Councilor Luba, Councilor Luba, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my suggestion would be is if we've got a great starting point, I think that if other individual councilors want to add in parts of their, to the statement, that they could present that to you and Chairwoman Nuccio, as well as Mr. Rosen, and then that could be sent out to us, so that everybody can review it. And then on the next meeting, that's when we could that we can sort of discuss and try and combine what's been put forward. So I think that would probably be the best way to go forward.
Okay, and then Mike, just to quickly ask, I know you've all been taking dutiful notes, but is there anything that you need from us immediately?
Sure. So I think we covered it, but what I'll do is the draft that I was provided before this meeting, I'll send that around to the council and also give it to Lisa for the minutes as well, so she can have a copy of it. And maybe we'll use that moving forward into the next meeting. Perhaps if individual councilors have revisions or suggestions, to email me those so that I'm neutral in it. So send me your edits, and I will compile them and try to bring forward a compiled document to the next time that this is on the agenda, whether maybe next meeting, I'm assuming. And then just to the point that was brought up earlier about extension of utilities. So it's a good question. I don't have the answer about what happened when this last came up, if we received state aid. I can tell you that I looked into extending the gas line through Eversource back when. So right now the gas line ends on Old Post Road, right around where CNC Software is. And it was first looked at back when the previous development was proposed behind Papa T's. What would it take to bring the gas line up Old Post Road, make a right, go down Merrow Road 195? And at that time, I guess 5 or so years ago, maybe a little bit longer, Eversource did a cost benefit analysis and decided that it wasn't worth their, they wouldn't pick up enough businesses and residents to do it. However, we've re-engaged them about it 6 or 9, now I can say it now that Santini's public. When they first came to the town to talk to us about it 6 to 9 months ago, I reached out to Eversource to say, hey, there's another developer in town now that's interested in doing something a little bit further down the road towards the Big Y. They are currently doing their cost benefit analysis to find out if it's worthwhile. So I don't have an answer as to yet, but it's being looked into.
Okay, great. Councilor Felucci, I see your hand is up if you'd like to.
Yeah, could you just throw that, share your screen again so that we can take a look at that one more time, because then so we don't have to wait for the minutes to come out. Thank you.
And Lisa P., I will send this to you in an email.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Councilor Felucci, are you all set? Nope, okay, you unshare the screen. Okay, good. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to instruct Town Manager Rosen to move forward with developing a draft statement against racism to be presented and discussed on at our next meeting.
Lulu, I'll make that motion.
Brenda Felucci, I'll second.
All right, all those in favor by a roll call vote. Councilor Felucci,
Aye.
Councilor Luba,
Aye.
Councilor Regan,
Aye.
Councilor York,
Aye.
Councilor Schenner,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so that is unanimous. So again, I think as Mike alluded, if there are any changes, the document will be shared and will be in the minutes. Provide your input to him, and from there he can work towards crafting a unified statement that we can further discuss at our next meeting. So with that being said, just bouncing back a little bit, we completed 9.1. So item 10, report of the town manager. Mike, take it away.
Yes, I actually have a guest star here tonight. I don't know if you saw him sneak in, but Rob Miller, are you there? I think I saw.
I am
here.
All right, perfect timing. Thanks for coming. So
No problem.
Rob Miller, for those who don't know, is our district director of health, Eastern Highlands Health District. And with vaccines on the mind, I'm sure everyone's very interested. And I hope you all stay on for another few minutes for this update from the health director. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks for allowing me to intervene in your meeting here tonight. And I appreciate the opportunity. It's been some time since I last had the pleasure of providing, I think, important public health information to the council members here for the town of Tolland. And so I thought that with things having ramped up quite a bit since the last time I've been participating in one of these meetings on the issue of COVID-19, that now would be better late than never. With that said, I have a few, about 3 topics I just want to cover briefly. One is kind of some of the data indicators that are out there these days. Second, testing, and then third, of course, I'll provide some information regarding the campaign and vaccine rollout. So with that said, I don't know if anybody has looked at the data recently, but as of February 4th, with regards to the town of Tolland anyway, there's about a 34% drop in the prevalence of cases within a 2-week period, which is certainly a good thing. And that aligns more or less with what has been a downward trend statewide which has really been occurring over the past 3 weeks. I know the town of Tolland was really challenged by an acceleration of cases there about a month ago, and luckily that has definitely subsided over the past number of weeks. Some of the larger indicators at the state, like for example, for hospitalizations, it's under 1,000 and has been for some time. And then the positivity rate for the state is also under 4%, which has also been the first time for a few months since it's been been that low. And Tolland's last positivity rate is a bit outdated. They haven't updated the state website. It was at 4.5% as of the 4th, but I think it's gone down since then, and waiting for the updated data on that part of it. And while you're still a red considered within this DPH's town response framework, level red community, you're certainly in good company with what is really the rest of the state of Connecticut, except for maybe 4 or 5 very small towns. I think it's going to be some time really before many of the towns start. Many of the moderate to larger towns start to get out of the level red alert system. The indicator threshold for that is like 15 cases per 100,000, and you guys are currently at 36.6 as for the last time that the data was updated for the state of Connecticut. So I think Tolland and the rest of the state are going to be at that level for some time. In terms of testing, as you know, we continue to partner with the town of Vernon on alternating testing sites between the high schools, which I think has gone pretty well. As you've figured out by now, we extended the schedule through February, and we're going to work to do the same thing into March 2 here in the next couple of weeks. Although the last event was canceled because of a weather event, beyond that, things have been going pretty well at the Tolland testing facility. Been ranging anywhere from about 200 to 350 tests on any given day. Unfortunately, I don't have the latest data from the 24th. I'm still waiting for the vendor to send that to me. But the last set of data I have is from the 10th, which at this point is a month ago. And the positivity rate was 10.3 back then. But we've come a long way since then, which is again an indicator of good news. And let's hope it stays that way. In terms of vaccination and the vaccine campaign, the health district's been vaccinating now on a weekly basis on anywhere from 3 to 5 clinics per week. About we're doing about 400 to 500 doses a week. And at this point, we've vaccinated about 2,300 people, 2,000 first doses, 300 second doses. And of that number, 110 of them are Tolland residents. And 46 of them are individuals under the age of 40, over the age of 75. In terms of vaccine coverage, as you know, I'm sure many of you heard, Tolland's doing very well, reasonably well relative to some of your neighbors and other parts of the state in terms of vaccine coverage for your senior population at 76.5%. As of February 3rd. So I'm sure a week later that number is ticked up even further. The state of Connecticut, by way of example, is at 43.2%. So you're way ahead of that. And so keep up the good work with whatever you're doing there in the town of Tolland, getting those seniors covered. We're in terms of vaccine, in terms of the rollout, there has, as you've heard, a soft launch for the prioritization subgroup age 65 and older. The official launch is Thursday, but my office did get written authorization on Sunday evening that if we had any available appointments in our upcoming clinics leading up to the formal launch on Thursday, that we were permitted to use those for the 65 and older range. So I took that as an opportunity. I reached out to the towns and to the schools and invited them if they had any staff that are over 65 to upload them to VAMS and to go ahead and book appointments with our clinics. And as a result of that, our clinic tomorrow, 200 dose clinic tomorrow, is completely full, which is a good thing. We're happy to be able to provide that early opportunity to some municipal frontline workers and some teachers that meet that age criteria. I do want to report out, we had a bit of an interesting experience last week with our February 3rd clinic. Leading the night before, I think probably close of business, we were looking at maybe as a 300 dose clinic and 300 appointments posted in VAMS, and we had maybe 150 that were filled. And so I was a bit disappointed at our ability to fill those appointment slots. Driving into work that morning, if I can just share a small story, I was listening on the news and I heard that ECHN had canceled a whole bunch of appointments that the day before. And I came into my office, fired up the computer, looked at the list of updated appointments. I expect 4 or 5 over the night to fill up. And we had an extra 100 appointments that had filled in overnight. And so we ended up administering 260 doses. Over 100 of them were patients from ECHN that had figured out had made their way over to us. So again, we were happy to be able to do that for that population, but we were scrambling there for a little while. I had to get a few more extra vaccinators, had to get a whole bunch of chairs, because unfortunately, the target population was seniors, and so we had a lot of people with mobility issues in line, which was a downside to that, but the upside was we were able to get those people vaccinated. So looking forward, most of our clinics for the entire month of February, we're doing again about 4 or 5 clinics a day, are almost booked up, and so we're going to be continuing to post more clinics as we're able, and at some point in time, once we start looking at once the governor starts to provide hints about the next phase or the next rollout for teachers, frontline municipal workers, and others, we're going to start looking very carefully to see how we can support vaccinating that population. Now, I guess I want to emphasize, with that being said, that that the health district is one of many providers in the area. The pharmacies are now firing up. ECHN and Trinity Health are providing active clinics, and certainly Hartford Healthcare and others. And I am also privy to the fact that there has been some talk about some kind of large mass vaccination sites. It's very preliminary talk. I don't think there's anything serious at this point in time. I know that the governor and the acting commissioner Gifford is very much sensitive to equity issues in our state, and applying what they call social vulnerability index when deciding to locate the super mass vaccination sites like you see now at Rensselaer Field. But I do know that they're looking at a similar type scenario down in Willimantic, Windham area, and certainly some other sites in the Hartford area. And so at some point in time, once vaccine becomes available, because that's really the limiting resource right now, there'd be a lot more people would be getting vaccinated if we're getting more than 55,000 doses a week in this state. I mean, we have the capacity in the state of Connecticut to easily do 150,000 a week if we just had the vaccine, and even more. So we're anxious to start getting more vaccine. For the health district's part, we're pushing our capacity at about 400 or 500 doses a week. We could probably, on a short period, ramp up a little bit faster than that. That's essentially where we're at now, and we're just at this point working on assuring that we are here and that we're available to do to vaccinate as many people as we can, because it's going to be a long campaign. This is just the beginning. So with that said, I'd be glad to field any questions you may have.
Sure. And before we get to questions, Rob, I just wanted to mention the Vernon program as well.
Of course.
So,
Yep.
Counselors, not sure if you're familiar or not. I know it was reported in a couple of newspapers, but outside of the VAMs and state systems and things like that Rob just mentioned, Tolland has also partnered with our neighboring community of Vernon to avail ourselves to vaccine clinics that are administered in the town of Vernon. And they are done, I think, for the most part on Saturdays, but residents of Tolland who qualify currently 75 plus and in the future 65 years of age plus can get vaccinated in Vernon as part of these clinics as well. So this is a different phone number. You would call a different call center. Then, you can always go, like Rob mentioned, any which way out there you can get vaccinated. Keep your options open. Obviously only make one appointment, but try anywhere that you can get the vaccine. But another avenue for Tolland residents as of yesterday, is also going to the town of Vernon. So I'm going to share a phone number for you all. It's going to be posted on the town website as well. But for people that are eligible to receive vaccine at this moment, you can dial 860-896-4568. And that number is staffed by a person Monday through Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Thursdays, 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a call center located in the Vernon Library that is staffed by volunteers from all of the towns that are part of this program. Tolland is one of 6, I believe. And we actually are very fortunate that we've had some of our municipal staff volunteer from a cross section of all of our departments to help staff the call center. And in exchange, we now have the opportunity to be part of this program with our neighboring community. So again, 860-896-4568, Monday to Friday. Somebody will answer your call. I was talking to somebody who participated today in the call center. They said no call went past 3 rings. So you're going to get a live person answering the phone. I wouldn't, just keep in mind they're very busy, especially early on in the morning. But at the moment, I'm sharing this number, but this coming Saturday's clinic is already fully booked, and there's also a wait list of 300 people. But going forward, we'll be at the forefront of that. So this week is booked already, but like I said, going forward, we'll be able to get people into that. And a lot of the people who are booked are Tolland residents because they did see the article that came out and they called. So I just wanted to share that aspect of it as well as, I'm like Rob, I'm very in tune to the governor's press conferences and municipal calls, keeping an eye on everything and the trending. And I'm very proud of Tolland that, as Rob mentioned, we are 77% of our 75 plus have at least gotten 1 dose. So it's good numbers, everybody. Thank you.
And if I may, I commend Mike's office for taking that initiative to reach out to Vernon and make that happen. Many hands make light work, although I think it's going to be a while before the work gets that light.
Thank you. Looking to see a couple hands up. So Councilor Schenner, if you had a question for either Tom Anthony Rosen or
a real quick question for Rob regarding to the second dose. I'm not trying to fear monger here, but I've heard from some people I know. My brother's a frontline healthcare worker, and he just got his second dose, and he's a young guy, and he was put for a loop with it. How are older people or people who aren't in the British shape handling that dose?
Yeah, so we have. I can tell you from my own small non-randomized sampling, of colleagues and staff persons, that it is not uncommon for somebody to develop flu-like symptoms after, within a 24-hour period after the second dose. And it's not uncommon as a result of that for people to be out of work for a day for a day. I haven't heard of any examples which have been much more extreme than that within my sphere. Within my sphere, but it is not uncommon for somebody to develop flu-like symptoms and just be out of work for the next day, and then the next day be fine. Day after that, they're back to work, no problems at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Calusi?
Yes, thank you. Brenda Flusig. Is there any, I know this is obviously in the middle of the pandemic and this is hard, but for those people who can't drive, like you identified, many of these people right now going to the appointments have mobility issues, is Dial Ride or anybody able to give rides to people to vaccine clinics?
I know that there are a number of resources out there. Dial Ride and Uber and Lyft were doing small initiatives. I know many communities have their own senior van in which they're working. I know Lions clubs and things of that nature are mobilizing neighbors and friends to help a senior. So there's lots of ideas and options out there. Let me recharacterize. I wouldn't say there's lots of options out there, but there are lots of ideas. Sometimes it's hard. It has been challenging in some communities to implement them. Finding a senior that needs that help and linking them up with the resources they need to get access isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. This particular group is definitely will be the most challenging in terms of access for a whole host of reasons. Certainly, access to transportation, social support. None of them are digital natives, so navigating electronics, all of that's been a real problem. And so I know that there's a lot of out of the box thinking out there amongst communities to try to figure out how to overcome some of that stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I had actually a few questions for you, Rob. The first and probably the quickest one is it the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine that's being utilized out of your district offices?
Yeah, we're administering Moderna, that 2-dose series, 28 days apart.
Okay. And is that mostly due to the storage opportunities that are available to that versus Pfizer?
That was definitely part of State Department of Health's thinking when they were developing an allocation plan for local providers. When it came to local public health departments as a vaccine provider, I'm not aware of a single local health department that has a deep freezer.
Yeah, I know. Even with my employer, there was discussions at one point because we do a lot of wholesale and have frozen facilities, and it's difficult to get our freezers that quick. We consider trying to step in and help, but
right. Fortuitously, though, as it turns out, our health district does have 2 vaccine freezers that we had purchased 10 years ago from H1N1 funding, and I'm so pleased that we're able to finally put them to some use.
But it's great that you actually mentioned funding, because that was my next question. In terms of the state aid that you received, I think several months ago, I was curious how is that holding up, and if there's any need for a second round, or is a second round been proposed in terms of supporting you all for your the vaccines and the next big waves of vaccination groups?
No, it's a good question. We're spending the money very quickly. We've had to hire. Let's see. I've brought on at this point in time, effectively. Let's see, 3 new full-time people, and we're hiring another part-time person. The ELC grant that you're referring to, which sounds like it's a lot, $380,000, but it's over 3.5 years, so it comes out to about $150 a year, and that's one person. But we got a small amount from the initial crisis funding, about 30,000. That's been spent months ago, and we were able to secure another 100,000, a little over 100,000 through the town Corona Relief Fund, which we were thankful for with the assistance of the town of Mansfield. What we're looking at now, the challenging thing here is that we're not set up for third-party billing. No, very few local health departments are. So while all the healthcare networks are billing for every shot that they administer, we're doing it for free when it comes down to it. And so we're really looking for, hopefully at some point in time, either the state or the current federal administration, providing funding for actual putting shots into arms, which is what we're doing now. We are starting to look at FEMA reimbursement, but for a small agency like ours, you really need like a full-time financial person to manage the FEMA reimbursement process. It's very challenging. So for us, it comes down to is the squeeze worth the juice.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where we may have to do that because we're not at our peak yet in terms of expenditures on say a weekly or monthly basis. So we're going to be continuing to look for just to shake the tree for
No,
as much funding as we can get.
that's fair. And I think, considering our hurricane last year and a few other events, Chief Lytle, who I know was on the call, and Lisa can probably attest to the pains and difficulties associated with filing for FEMA reimbursement and, the amount of hoops you have to jump through. So, you really do need someone that's skilled and excellent in that field to complete that. And I know you mentioned the hiring, and I'm recalling probably several months ago, there was a sort of like a volunteer corps that was recruited. And I was curious how that is going along in terms of, I know the corps is being, I think, trained and reassigned to either call centers or to help with vaccinations. Is that still effectively staffed, or is there a need for more people to maybe sign up if they're retired nurses or in that cohort that can serve?
Yeah, great question. All of the above. We're definitely fully. We have our Medical Reserve Corps, the Eastern Highlands Health District Medical Reserve Corps, fully engaged in this in the response locally. They're engaged in a number of roles. They're assisting us with contact tracing, or in the early stages, they were assisting us with testing and pop-up sites. And now we certainly have them staffing all of our clinics. We have volunteers at all of our clinics, both non-medical and clinical volunteers. Pretty much all of our vaccinators are volunteer doctors and nurses. And we continue to recruit on a regular basis new members whenever possible. And so with that said, I'm going to, if I may, just plug the opportunity on how to do that is you can go to the State Health Department website. It's called CT Responds with an exclamation point. CT Responds, exclamation point. And at that website, you can register as an MRC volunteer. And it's both, at first it appears to be only for medical personnel, but no, absolutely non-medical. Register at that site too. And when you do, to be a member of the Eastern Highlands unit, you want to be sure that when you identify an affiliated organization at the website, you identify Eastern Highlands MRC, and then you'll get an email from my staff, and we'll tell you next steps how to be on our team.
No, that's great. And maybe if you'd like to send that over to Town Manager Rosen, perhaps if appropriate, it might be good to get an e-blast out to the community as well to encourage residents. And then just one final question for your Medical Reserve Corps: are they in one of the earlier cohorts for vaccinations due to their consistent risk of exposure and being involved in the process?
Yeah. So anybody working the clinic floor is working with in a healthcare setting and is considered healthcare personnel under Phase 1A. So yes, everybody is offered vaccination if they work our clinic floor as a volunteer.
Okay, great. And actually, I just have one final question, and I think that covers it for me. Is I know you said we have a very high rate of vaccination among the 75 plus crowd. I was curious if that does break down into, I know we have a limited number, but our congregate home settings or our senior housing areas like Woodlake and
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting question. I believe it does include, the residents at, say, for example, you have an assisted living facility. I can't recall the name of it. Who all did they all did receive vaccination. Certainly, Woodlake and Tolland, and then it does not include. I know you have some age restricted apartment complexes, which technically, while individuals are old enough and may have received the vaccine, but as a complex, they're not necessarily linked up with a provider to get vaccine in a group setting. Parker Place comes to mind as one of those types of examples where it's age-restricted apartments, not really conjugate setting. But to kind of answer your questions directly, I'm not off the top of my head. The conjugate setting issue is a challenging one. The state of Connecticut has been challenged by matching up providers to many conjugate settings. The health district is challenged by, is very much challenged by extending services to them. So I know that right now conjugate settings, residents and their staff are eligible. And so if they can manage to go to a clinic, they would get vaccinated. But that does beg the question. So why is Tolland doing so well? And I don't have a good answer for that, to tell you the truth. I know that what we've been doing at Eastern Highlands, and I've talked to Bev Bellerly about that a little bit. But it just seems like you've got a really motivated senior population out there.
No, that's great. And I think Winding River is like maybe the other facility might have been
Winding River, yes, thank you.
Yeah. And then, sorry, just one final comment that I'd like to make is just a quick shout out to the Chief Lytle and everybody running the Emergency Operations Center as consistently as they have since we went to this public emergency declaration, working with the CERT team and being a part of multiple testing site events. Everyone's been professional, been courteous, especially our residents, and showing up in those waves of 200 to 300. So just, kudos. And I think that may also be a testament to our senior outreaches. I think Chief Lytle has been very, I don't say aggressive, but very forward thinking in terms of trying to get people within all the communities that work with public safety to reach out to those in need, that seniors that might have issues with registering online for vaccinations or have issues getting to somebody with a call. So just want to thank them for their continued tireless efforts and moving forward with our next waves of vaccination. So that covers it for me for questions for Rob, unless there's anybody else.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, thank you for the special pop in.
No
Rob.
problem. I think it was overdue.
And then just oh, sorry, we're gonna say something.
I was gonna say, hope we see you more soon and better news ahead.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the only other thing I just wanted to say to council before we move on is that don't forget the capital budget public hearing is Thursday, the 11th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. I'll have the slides to you tomorrow. I'm just finalizing some pictures, but we're moving forward with the capital budget on Thursday. So I'm all set with my manager's report. Thank you.
Okay. And if there's, just want to make sure if there's any questions from counselors regarding the manager's direct report. If none, all right, let me just pop open. I was looking at the report for a little bit, so. Adoption of minutes. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as outlined in 11.1.
Slulub also move.
And is there a second?
This is Kurt Scheiner, I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor by roll call vote. Councilor
I'm sorry,
Falusi?
can we have discussion?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't see the hand raised. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. We received 2 emails about what was in the minutes. One of them was about making some changes to something that was reported in the minutes. The other email came in at like 6:20, and that was right before we went into executive session. I haven't had a chance to compare what was said in the video and what was put in the minutes because I may have misspoken. That's been brought to my attention. I'd like to be able to do that review and not, put minutes in that I may have misspoken that needs a, some updating on. It was with me putting together what the correspondence was. I quickly looked to what I had written down, and it doesn't line up with what the correspondence received, that, I had made a mistake, but I haven't had a chance to look back at the meeting minutes and the video to see if I did in fact have, misspoke on one of the letters that we received.
Sorry, I was muted for a moment there.
Yeah.
So did you want to go ahead and outline exactly where within the minutes? I think it looks like the correspondence, that's the reference is page 55 or 55 maybe?
Maybe. I honestly didn't have a chance to look because this came in at 6:20, one of them, and we went into executive session at 6:30. So there hasn't been an opportunity to take a look at both the video, the correspondence that came in, and what I may have said in the minutes to make sure that they all align. And if I need to make a statement that I did do something wrong, I'd like the opportunity to fix that, obviously.
Okay.
And fix the minutes, because I would hate the minutes to reflect something that, has been misinterpreted or misrepresented.
So I know there was a motion and a second put forward. I don't think it's necessarily a requirement. Town Manager Rosen, can you clarify if we need to adopt minutes immediately following our next meeting, or could we table this discussion and adopt the minutes on the 26th at our next regular meeting?
I might need a second to look into that because I know there is a statute about minutes being published, but I have to verify the answer to that. My gut tells me you could probably table it, but let me see if I can get the answer to that.
Right.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, they have been published. They just might not be correct.
They're not approved. The draft minutes are published and motion.
Right.
The statute has to do with motions and who voted for what being published in a timely fashion. So that is published at this point. I think if you wanted to bring these minutes back to the next meeting, that would be fine.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, I want to make sure we do it right and get it right.
Okay. So I know I entertained a motion, and I know Councilor Luba made the motion and Councilor Schenner seconded. I don't know if there's any desire to rescind that motion so that we can allow for further review and discussion due to the late email that was sent regarding discrepancies in the way the minutes were outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Lou Luba. That given the statement, I think that the issue was, as Ms. Felucci was saying, was during the issue of the correspondence and when she was going over the correspondence in the last meeting. If that's what she's referring to, then I would have I would withdraw my motion so that we could table this for further review at a later point and address the issue at a later time, subject to Mr. Schenner's agreement with that, since he was a seconding party.
Okay.
I can agree to that.
Okay, so with that motion withdrawn, I would now entertain a motion to table 11.1 to our next meeting.
So
Brenda, or second, whichever.
So moved by Councilor Schenner and seconded by Councilor Felucci. I'll just do a roll call vote for all in favor. Brenda Felucci, or Councilor Felucci?
Aye.
Councilor Luba?
Aye.
Councilor Regan?
Aye.
Councilor York?
Yes, aye.
And Councilor Schenner.
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that's unanimous. So Mike, we will table that and make sure that's on the next meeting agenda. All right, so item number 12, correspondence to council.
This is Brenda Felucci. So we received an email that said that the resident was looking forward to the discussions on racism, says that it is difficult but important work that we will be doing. We received 2 emails about the electric school bus that has been deployed in the state of Connecticut, and looking forward to possibly us getting some electric school buses at some point in the future. Another resident said they look forward to the discussion on racism and shared experiences that her son had witnessed about racism. Another email gave us information on racism being a problem in Tolland. Another email which outlined health equity solutions in the 177 municipalities that have made declarations. Another email that the resident was moved by the bravery and honesty of the residents and asked us to take actions. This was in regard to the discussion on racism. An email about support for declaring racism as a public health emergency. We received 2 statements that violence and racism are both bad. They both exist in Tolland to some extent. We received an email about a request for a Zoom meeting in February to discuss racism in Tolland. We had a request to find a way to fly the pride flag for the month of June. We had a question about, or a comment about the intent of the charter and how it was to enable volunteers opportunities to as many residents as possible to be able to serve on boards and commissions. We had an email about decarbonization of the US energy system. And we had an email about they were disappointed on the lack of discussion on racism and asking for a special meeting. And then, like I said, we had 2 emails. One of them wanted to note some changes for some comments made by one of the counselors in the minutes. And another one that said that I had misspoken about their letter. And again, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to review it. They also, went on to say how your racism is a real issue. And it's something that should not and cannot be allowed in Tolland. So I'd like to request that when we do this, we take a look at the correspondence for next time. We take a look at the history of what we've done with correspondence to the council. Because I believe at the beginning of this 2-year session, we were actually putting copies of all the correspondence we received into meeting minutes. And then it got too big. The file, I guess, got too big or something. And so we stopped doing that and we started just doing, this little snippet or an overview of what we received. So if we could take a look historically back and see what we've done so that we can answer some of the questions that were in this last email, I would appreciate that. And that is all.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to item 13, Chairperson's report. So in lieu of Chair Minuccio being here, I would just like to concur with Mike's comments about our upcoming public hearing on the capital budget. I believe that the roughly 65 to 72 page document is available on either the manager's site or the town council site. Is that correct?
I will double check. I know as of tomorrow, I have to see where it's posted at the moment, but the memo that was sent should be on the financial page, but we'll also be putting the slides up tomorrow on there as well. And also was requested at a previous meeting, we're going to have copies printed out in the library for physical inspection as well.
Okay, great. And then just as a reminder, in addition to that, I believe either Councilor Luber or Councilor Schenner alluded to our schedule and that we have on February 22nd, we are going to have a joint meeting between the Council and Board of Education regarding the budget. I believe also tonight, or actually no, yeah, I believe it's Thursday during our capital budget public hearing, the Board of Education will submit their budget to the manager. And then going forward into March 3rd, our manager will submit the budget to the council. We'll advertise public hearing on the 4th, and then the 10th, 11th, and 16th of March, we'll have budget discussions with the council. And then going through the remainder of the process. In addition, I did just want to call out and welcome some of the new town staff that have been hired and are moving forward, Karen Pachulis, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, as a, I believe in the assessor's office. Did want to welcome
Yes.
back to Litwin, who's helping cover the town clerk's office. And then I think for public safety, I think it's Timothy Seitz, who has begun employment as a public safety officer. And just noting the fact in the report that it's the first addition to for the public safety officer in more than 12 years. So I'm glad to see that we are moving forward with that. With that being said, I do appreciate everyone's conversations in 8.4 regarding the statement against racism and the cordialness, and I hope we can move forward in a way that is respectful of all people in our community as well as each other, despite our differences, our political affiliations, our religion, race, gender identity, sexual orientation. So just moving forward, that we have difficult conversations ahead. It's important to wade into the difficult conversations and wade in that uncomfortable situation, because ultimately it does bring about more honest dialogue and hopefully meaningful resolutions and action going forward. So those are just my initial comments and thoughts, as well as making note of our important budget season and moving forward with that. So with that being said, just moving back to the agenda. Sorry, just bouncing between screens. Communications and petitions from council persons. So if any one counselor has something they'd like to raise as an issue to the council or recommend to Mike, please do so by raising your hand. All right, Councilor Schenner.
Thank you, Steve. A real quick thing, I would like to see in the upcoming meetings a discussion about going back to the hybrid meeting model. I know we discussed this before the new year, and it kind of got put on hiatus. But I think it's time to have that discussion again about having at least some in-person meetings, if that's feasible. With the vaccine rolling out and cases getting lower, I think it is time to have that discussion. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Luba?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would first off second Ms. Felucci's request about us reviewing how we handle the correspondence to the council. That I've been, after the last meeting, I was approached by several different residents about their concerns regarding letters that were submitted where that they felt that their position was not fully presented. And that moreover, that after the meeting was done, and it was that there was a lot of discussion around town about what was discussed, that I was approached by other residents, including some of the BIPOC community within Tolland, about our discussion and everything else, and they expressed their concerns regarding expressing what they felt, where they had issues with the racism being declared a public health emergency. That they stated that that they did view that racism was an issue, but that they did not encounter it as much as what's being presented in Tolland, and this was from BIPOC families. But that moreover, that they were concerned because if they didn't want to put this down in writing or send an email or call in because of concern of possible repercussions or other things that might occur. And unfortunately, I think that some of their fears were sort of well-founded, where just the next day that there was some social media posts out there that were talking about the issues and about the discussions, and how there was actually a call by some of the people on this social media site about doxing the people, about doxing who had written in, that there were some comments about some people that had written in being business owners, and that quote unquote from one of the speakers that they wanted to hold them responsible for their statements, which again is a very chilling effect, and that these members after this occurred had contacted me again, voicing their concerns once more. And I think the most egregious thing about it is that it's not just that they were looking to dox them, but they actually requested assistance from former elected representatives as well as current representatives. That the biggest concern that I have is that this even occurred, is that this request for getting this information for people that are speaking out simply because they don't hold a viewpoint that some of the other speakers hold, to hold them responsible and to basically make make an issue of it is something that is just goes only to further reinforce what I spoke about last week or last meeting about the cancel culture, where it has a serious chilling effect. It prevents people from being willing to call in and voice their opinions because of this concern. Because if they disagree with what other people are putting forward during these meetings, that they then get quote unquote held responsible for it by these other members, and that it just has a significant chilling effect. It dissuades open discussion, which is what we need. We just said how we need to go through open discussion on these issues, but there can't be any open discussion unless there's open and honest disagreement, where people can feel able to voice their opposing opinions or other experiences that they might have that are different from the people that are speaking up, but that they're not willing to because of this issue, because of being called out, because of being held responsible, because of the possible doxing of them. So, I mean, I think that's a significant issue, and that it's something that I think as a town council we cannot, that it should be condemned. That it's something that by doing this and by looking to dox people simply because they disagree with you is something that will only serve to harm the discussion and create a further divide. I think that's something that needs to be said, and that we need to, whenever possible, dissuade anything from this like this happening. But that's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Luba. Councilor Lucy?
Yes, Brenda Flusy. I think we've entered a very slippery slope when we start allowing discussions that happen on social media to enter inside of this forum and allow it to, us being reactionary to it. Residents, from my understanding, correspondence is FOIA-able. If somebody does write into the town council, anybody can request to be able to read that information. And previously, like I said, it had been copied and put into the minutes. Any comments that people make during public discussion can be obviously easily seen in the minutes or on our videos, or obviously live. When we start talking about, doxing or residents deciding where they want to spend their money or what businesses they want to support, those are personal choices that they're welcome to make. I guess I'll just end there, but I don't think that we should allow social media to be a driving force for how we conduct our business, how we create policy. We should be welcoming and inviting for all residents to be able to write in, to be able to speak at public forums, and let them know that when they do share their information, it is public knowledge, and that anybody can view that information at any time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go around for a second time, Councilor Luba, I just want to circle back on Councilor Schenner's comments regarding the hybridized return to meeting format, because actually it was a discussion I've had with a few people that it might be worthwhile at a future time to consider redoing our survey regarding remote participation policy, especially in light of, I think when we did that last survey, the Commission on Persons with Disabilities had not been established. And I think in terms of equity and access, they would be a very germane group that could provide input on where they feel going forward, utilizing Zoom or other mediums to hold public meetings for boards and commissions is beneficial, equitable, and fair for all residents. So that would be my request for consideration with the chair, and going back to a future meeting is perhaps utilizing our survey, going out to our boards and commissions that have been doing this now for about almost a year, 11 months, give or take, and seeing where they stand, if opinions have changed. I know at least one member who responded to the survey, reaching out to them afterwards, I think their opinion has radically changed since then about remote engagement, while understanding that being in person, I believe, is somewhat ideal in terms of the sharing of information and the ability for people to convey themselves towards one another in person versus the virtual matter, which kind of separates us a little bit and creates a potential psychological disconnect between individuals. So striking that balance between getting business done effectively, ensuring members attend regularly, and don't utilize a participation policy to never show up to town hall to be engaged with the public and potential business owners and other individuals that have business before our boards and commissions. So that's just one request, and we can go further into that offline, Mike, and talk to Tammy about that, or Chairman Nuccio about that. So with that being said, if you're just going around, if there's anyone else for the first time, I saw Councilor Luba, I don't know if you lowered your hand if you didn't want to speak up again, or if you had a new request. I just want to avoid back and forth between councilors. I know that there's disagreements and they can be respectful and engaged with one another, but I don't want it to become a back and forth between councilors on what's being said of one another.
I'm all set. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that being said, item number 15, public listed participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 3-minute limit. Again, this is a 3-minute limit. It's with anything within the town. Generally, we do try to enforce the 3 minutes, but I will give a 30-second grace period once the 3-minute marker is hit if I feel the summary of the statement is being wrapped up. So with that being said, if there's anyone, you can go to reactions and raise your hand. Otherwise, I think it might be under participants, depending on your computer or system, or if you're on a phone, you hit *9. And I'd like to recognize Liz Costa first. So if you can also state your name and address when you speak.
Hello, Liz Costa, 54 Josiah Lane. As seen in nearly every state in the nation, including our own, during this public pandemic, racism has negatively impacted and exacerbated health inequities, among historically marginalized communities. Without systemic and structural level change, health inequities will continue to exist and the overall health of our nation will suffer. You should all be committed to optimal health for all of our community and should be working to ensure all people within our community reach their full potential. By declaring racism as an urgent public health crisis, it's simply a step in the right direction towards advancing equity and access to public health and ensuring that our citizens, can reach their full potential while creating pathways for truth, healing, and reconciliation. In the proclamation that was not discussed last month, it simply sought for the town to acknowledge that although the primary drivers of racial and health inequity are systemic and structural racism and unconscious bias within the town and in our healthcare delivery have potentially caused and continue to cause harm to marginalized communities and society as a whole during this pandemic. In your statement, it should recognize racism in its systemic, cultural, interpersonal, and other forms as a serious threat to public health, to the advancement of health equity and a barrier to appropriate medical care. It should also support the development of policy and even a committee to combat racism and its effects in all parts of our town government, education, business, and access to town services. It should also encourage our governmental agencies and non-governmental organizations within our town to increase funding for support of a committee to end the risks and damages related to racism and how to prevent or repair them. Finally, it should encourage the development, implementation, and evaluation of every single board and commission and our public education system to fund the necessary changes to ensure that our town improves the programs and curriculum that engender greater understanding of the causes, influences, and effects of systemic, cultural, institutional, interpersonal racism that occurs, as well as how to prevent and ameliorate the health effects of racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Mary Rose Dubrick.
Yes, good evening. Mary Rose Dubrick, 37 Ryan Road. Thank you for discussing racism. Mr. Luba spoke about taxes and the need to lower taxes so people can afford to live here. And there was mention of affordable housing. And then the median household income of almost 120,000. Mr. Luba, assuming people of color can't afford to live in Tolland is racism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? If no, oh, Marilee Beebe.
Hi, I'm Marilee Beebe, 90 Rhodes Road. I want to follow up on the process, and this was actually alluded to by Councilor Falusi. I would like to request that the proposed proclamation language that was submitted for consideration under items 4.1 and 4.2 of the January 26th meeting, along with all related correspondence, be appended to the minutes and or posted to the website for public inspection as required by the Freedom of Information Act. This includes emails sent to and from individual council members. It does not appear currently that the council has been and is not currently in compliance with FOIA requirements. And I request that all such data related to the conduct of the public's business be available as required by this law, both before and after the town council meetings. I would note that this doesn't mean that correspondence has to be read verbatim into the record. It can be summarized, but I would also note that the law is specific that all such correspondence and documentation of the public's business is required to be available for public review. I would note that this has been standard practice for the land use boards, even during contentious issues, and I would point to the most current planning and zoning packet and minutes for reference as to how this is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilee. Kenneth James Trice.
Kenneth Trice, 53 Doe Run. So my observations are pretty glaring. And truth be told, this is hard. This is a hard discussion. This is not easy. To talk about racism is tough. It's really hard. And it makes people's emotions go to places that they really don't want to go to. And that's okay. That's human. When I first saw your attempt, and again, I understand and I credit you folks for trying to make some type of statement, the first word smacked me in the face. Racism and prejudice are two different definitions. Go look it up. That's number one. I know you tried, and I know it was a first attempt, but I might want to make it a suggestion. You may not know what to do, and that's okay. That's all right. Go out and find some folks to help you. Because what this was, and I know it was a good attempt, but it's like the Indian commissioner making a statement to the Indians, and he's never been on the reservation or doesn't even know how Indians think. So this is difficult for everybody because this is new. And this is a conversation that people don't want to talk about for all kinds of reasons. Fear is number one. So what I would suggest, it's not your fault that you don't know what to do or what to say. Go out and get some people to help you. That would be my suggestion. The statement about housing being, I think it was, I forget the lady's name, and Mary Rose, I'm sorry, about housing, that's true. When my wife and I first moved here, a statement was made, how can they afford that? That's true. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Annalise Sear.
Hi. So yeah, I'm with Kenny on what he's saying. You know, it was a real big struggle last week after it was a painful conversation to hear many people just kind discrediting and denying racism. And I know that the conversation has kind of turned to, yes, that, all right, yes, it does exist in this town, but I think we were hearing different things in the conversation last week. So that it was very painful, but you know, it was very enlightening for me to, you know, to realize that, okay, you know what though, I think Malcolm X had a quote at one point with something along the lines of like, you know, we don't always know, you know, it takes time for us to learn things. We don't know something that we haven't, we didn't, I'm trying to remember the quote here, sorry. But, and I meant to pull it up, but I didn't have time. But, we cannot blame people for not understanding what they've not experienced. And so I'm trying to be, very open-minded in all of this, and to understand that yes, many of these people they haven't experienced racism, they haven't seen it, they witnessed it, so it's something brand new to them. And but regardless though, we have seen millions of people around the world crying out for help, and asking for change, and for the white race to come join them, and to help them. And we it's our duty to do this. And so when looking back at last week's conversation, it's hard that it wasn't a conversation about declaring racism as a public health crisis. Instead, it was a conversation, it was a debate. It was a debate whether or not racism was real, and that should not have been the conversation. So I'm hoping, like, as we progress and as we talk more and more, and as Kenny was saying, these conversations, they're so difficult. Everyone is learning. I've been learning, you've been learning, everyone has. And it's going to be a push and pull, and it's going to, emotions are going to they're going to get going. You saw me last week. I was very, very emotional. So I just hope that in the future that we can, come to these conversations with more, open hearts and open minds, and, much more compassion than we have in the past, because I am seeing a real lack of that in our conversations. I'm seeing lots of we're talking at each other, not with each other. So so I hope that we can come together and have an ultimate goal of being more action and goal oriented, and just thinking from a place of just love, really. And our ultimate goal is unity at the end of the day. So so yeah, I don't know how much time I have left, but
It did pass the 3-minute marker, but if you're
Oh, I
gonna
did.
guys.
Okay, all right, I'll wrap it up. All right, thank you.
And actually, just for the clerk's record, I don't know if you indicated your address, just so that they have that.
Sorry, 34 Columbine Road.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move to item 16. I would entertain a motion for adjournment at 9:09 p.m.
Brenda Felucci, so moved.
This is Kurt Schneider. I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor by roll call vote. Counselor Felucci?
Aye.
Counselor Luba?
Aye.
Counselor Regan?
Aye.
Counselor York?
Aye.
Counselor Schenner?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:09 p.m. Be well, be safe. Have a great night, everyone.